Good morning, everyone. Cheers. Happy Sunday. Good morning, Shawn.
Hello.
How are you? Good morning, everyone.
Oh, hang
Cheers.
on.
Happy Sunday. Good morning, Shawn. Cheers. Good morning, Shawn.
All right. Got it
Oh,
all squared away. Okay. Good.
yeah.
Good morning, everybody. How we
Good
doing?
morning. I'm driving to Wake Forest. Shawn's hanging out with me. We're going to do some coffee and vinyl. Shawn's got some wonderful stories to share with us about a recent experience he had, and cool things like that. So, yay! I think you said Don is here. Good morning, Don. How are you?
Mother is here. Yep.
Don, I hope you saw the video of me last Friday when I drove through Wake Forest looking at the lights. And thank you for that recommendation and suggestion. I had a blast doing it.
Um. So, Adam, which story was it that you were interested in hearing about?
Well, I think you saw Mr. Phil himself, didn't you? And
I
Mike
certainly did. Yeah. So
and
yeah,
Junior
I
and the other
was
guy.
I was fortunate enough to be able to see Genesis. Genesis is my favorite band of all time, and we got to see
Nice
them
elbow.
live for the first time in 14 years, which was really nice. The last time that they toured was in 2007, and so it was kind of funny because when they announced the tour, the only date that they announced near me was Charlotte, North Carolina. And so I said, okay, well, then I guess I'm going to go to Charlotte. So my wife and I bought tickets, and some of our friends bought tickets. We had a guy that was coming in from Nashville, Tennessee to come see it with us, a guy we'd all known for a long time. So that was really cool. However, I got slightly annoyed because 2 weeks after they launched the tour, they added some extra dates, and one of those dates was Raleigh. And I'm like, great, so now I have to drive all the way to Charlotte when I could have gone to see them, um, you know, right in my backyard. But whatever, I already had tickets, so it was good. And then the night of the Raleigh show, even though I was going to Charlotte the following day to see him, I was like, you know what? This is my favorite band of all time, and I'm never going to get the chance to see him again because, Phil Collins isn't going to tour anymore after this. I mean, in the shape he's in. During the '07 tour, he messed up some vertebrae back here, and he can't play drums anymore. He's got back problems. He can't stand for a long time, so he had to sit through the entire show. And sadly, they had two extra people up on stage to do backing vocals and some extra percussion because Phil can't hold those long notes anymore because of his back problems. He can't breathe in really hard to get a ton of air to get those long notes out. So he sounded great, but he definitely needed help. And so I said,
So it was a double whammy for you.
yeah, it was kind of sad to see, but I
Good.
mean, like I said, his voice sounded great. The rest of the guys all looked great. And so I ended up, even though we had nosebleed seats to Charlotte, I went to the Raleigh show the night before. I ended up getting a 4-seat and going by myself, which was fun because going to a concert by
Oh, very
yourself
good.
is different, obviously, than going with people. But it's nice because you can focus on things and you don't have people talking to you and things like that. So it's a little bit different, and so it was fun to be able to go by myself and then the following night go to Charlotte and see it with my friends and with people. So
Very cool. So
yeah.
if you're just joining us now, good morning. Thanks for hanging out with us. We're doing coffee and vinyl. I'm driving to Wake Forest to retrieve some records, to get the square reader, and to yeah, I got to leave something for somebody. And so we're doing coffee and vinyl. Sean's hanging out with me.
Yeah,
So hey, good morning, everybody.
we got Brick House Salvage and Antiques here, Steve.
Oh, good morning, Steve. Cheers. How are you? Have you gotten snow yet, Steve?
Um,
He's up in New
all
York.
right. So, for some records, I figure I'll start. This is almost all jazz, but some new arrivals. One big rock new arrival that I'm still surprised to find was one second. Yeah, it was this copy of Guns N' Roses Live Like a Suicide. This was their very first EP that came out. It came out before Appetite for Destruction. And supposedly there were only 10,000 of these made. I've never held one in my hands before in my life. Definitely legit. It's not a bootleg, which is nice. And so, yeah, I'm really stoked to have this. And then
I've never had that. Are there any Appetite songs on there?
no, it's actually not even live. It's their demo tape. But because their demo tape sounded so rough, what they did was they added fake crowd noise over it. They actually took the crowd noise from Aerosmith's Texas Jam, and they put the crowd noise over it to make it sound like the reason it was a rough recording was because it was live, when in reality it was all recorded in the studio. It was their demo tape. And so
That is funny.
4 songs on there. There's 2 originals and 2 covers. One of the covers that I do love on there is their version of Aerosmith's Mama Kin. Mama Kin is one of my favorite Aerosmith songs, and they do it justice on that. It's pretty good.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, and then some jazz that's come in recently that I've been pretty stoked about. Found this nice early copy of Wayne Shorter's All Seeing Eye. This is one of Wayne Shorter's better Blue Note records. So this was a nice find. And then 2 that I got from you that I never find, Adam. These are getting harder and harder to find. In the early 70s, this guy Reuben Wilson released a couple of records on Blue Note, and man, they're killer. So this first one is called Love Bug, and then we've got this one here. It's called Set Us Free, and both of these are just absolutely outstanding. So very.
It goes to show, folks, that other than just the big names, Mills Davis and Coltrane and Mingus, there's lots of wonderful jazz to discover.
Oh,
Hey,
God,
Shawn, looks
yeah.
like there's some comments. I'm driving, so I'm not really able to read the comments, folks, but
Yeah.
Shawn's going to help out with the comments.
Let's see. All right, so we got Calvin here. Good morning, Calvin.
Calvin, what's shaking, Calvin? He's the opposite of snow.
And then Steve said, yeah, snowed twice already. Just stopped in to say hi. Have to run to work. Have a great day, guys. Have a good one, Steve. Thanks for stopping in.
Oh, cool. Well, thanks for stopping by, Steve. Have a wonderful day. Steve's had videos where he gets his tractor and just plows and plows and plows and plows. He lives in one of those places where there's tons of snow.
Yeah, I've been there.
Uh-oh.
Would never want to move back, but I used to live there. I lived in snow country for plenty of years.
I love the photographs.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I like North Carolina down here. It snows just enough to be pretty. It snows an inch in a day, it's gone, and everything's cool. This was one of my best finds of the year, I think. Absolutely gorgeous original copy of Jackie McLean's Swing, Swing, Swingin'. This is another Blue Note LP, and pretty much everything Jackie McLean did as a leader on Blue Note was great, but this one is amazing even by those lofty standards. So I was super happy to find this. And then
Beautiful, colorful cover.
Yes, as we would expect from Reed Miles and Company. Then Adam, this is another one that I grabbed from you that was absolutely outstanding. Very happy to find this as well. Ornette Coleman's Ornette on
Ornette
tenor.
Coleman.
Yeah. So this is an original pressing on Atlantic from the believe this was 1960. I believe this was. So
Wow.
yeah, it's beautiful.
Another beautiful, colorful cover.
Yeah. And then I had some luck on the Bill Evans front recently, which I thought was cool. But actually, before I get there, another Ornette Coleman Atlantic record that's come in fairly recently is this one. This was from 1961, I think. It's called Free Jazz. And
there's a lot of writing on that. What does it say, Shawn? Would you mind reading it?
Yeah, it says Free Jazz, a collective improvisation by the Ornette Coleman Double Quartet. And it comes in this real nice, like, gatefold jacket with the die cut and everything. It's quite a nice package for a jazz record at that time.
Very cool. Now, who are the players on that one?
Good question. Let's see. So it's got Ornette Coleman on alto, Eric Dolphy on bass clarinet, Don Cherry on trumpet, Freddie Hubbard on trumpet, Scott LaFaro on bass, a guy who died way too young, Charlie Hayden on bass, Billy Higgins on drums, and Ed Blackwell on drums.
Wonderful players. Oh, that's amazing. I wonder if contemporary, when that was happening, I wonder if there was like, and so and so and so and so, and all these wonderful jazz. You know, you wonder how recognizable and how it was reported back in the day, and it was like, oh my gosh, these cool players are playing together. You just wonder how that was during the day.
I know. And, honestly, I think a lot of them, it was just, people that, it was just whoever happened to be scheduled to be at the recording session that day. Calvin said they've had 10 days in a row with highs in the 80s. Yeah.
Oh, I'm thinking. I can't wait. How many more days for spring? We got about 60, 80. We got about 80, 88 more days to spring. Is that what we have, Shawn?
Winter hasn't even started yet. So, yeah.
I know. I can't wait for winter to be over.
So I've had some good luck on Bill Evans jazz recently. Yeah. Found this really early copy of it's a stereo copy of Waltz for Debbie, and I absolutely love this. Believe it or not, I've never owned this on vinyl before. It's one that I've streamed a ton of times. I've never had it on vinyl, so found this early stereo copy and wasn't about to pass that up.
I have it on CD. It is good.
It is very good. And then this one is one of the most interesting jazz records that I've ever heard. And this record is known more for the cover art than the music. A lot of people know the cover, but have never actually heard it. This is Bill Evans and Jim Hall, and it is literally a jazz album of just piano and guitar. There is no bass, no drums, no anything. It's just the two of them. It's called Undercurrent. And this is, like I said, it's a well-known cover, but there are a lot of people that have never actually seen or actually heard the music. And on the back, you can just see there it says Jim Hall and Bill Evans Undercurrent. So
I like that record. I think I have a copy in my personal listening library of that. And the cool thing about that cover, super iconic. But there's been other bands that would release a record with that same cover. I think I know of at least 2 other bands that have done that. Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah. Hey, let's say hello to the people that's just coming in. Hey, thanks for joining us. I'm Adam. Shawn's joining me today. I'm driving to RecordKrate Wake Forest to retrieve some stuff to take it back to Raleigh. And so we're just doing coffee and vinyl hanging out. So cheers, and thanks for coming in.
Don said he has an OJC of Waltz for Debbie. Yep. You know,
Love that record.
those OJCs are excellent, especially the ones from the '80s that were mastered by George Horn at Fantasy. Those OJCs are great bang for the buck. They almost always sound great, and they're usually pretty reasonably priced.
Oh, absolutely. They're so. So we know about how cool they are. I know about how cool they are because Don shared that information with me. But in the world of jazz and jazz buying, there's not that many people that know about the OJCs, which is it's kind of good, but it's a shame because this is a wonderful listen.
Yeah, so OJC is probably one of the best reissue series ever undertaken in jazz. By the early '80s, Fantasy Records had come under ownership of a whole bunch of the classic jazz labels, right? By the early '80s, they owned Prestige, they owned Riverside, they owned Debut, they owned all kinds of classic jazz labels. So what they did was they decided that they were going to take all these jazz albums that had been out of print for years from the Prestige catalog and the Riverside catalog and from the Contemporary catalog and all this and reissue them. And they were very simple reissues. They were pretty historically accurate. It was the original cover art with the original liner notes on the back, nothing fancy, all with great sound. And so it was a way of getting hundreds of these jazz titles back into print. And OJC remains, one of the best reissue campaigns ever undertaken, I think.
And and today the prices are not astronomical.
Yeah, a couple of the
You
titles have been flying up in price, but generally speaking, they're still an excellent bang for the buck, especially when you consider the price of originals.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to some of my favorite records of 2021. Coming up toward the end of the year, and 2021 has been a pretty good year for me for new music. I'll start one that critics haven't been terribly praised, or critics haven't given a lot of praise to, but one that I've enjoyed. Chris from Record Talk says, "Good
Hey,
morning."
Chris. Good morning.
Good morning,
Morning.
Chris. One that critics haven't been too hot on, but I've really enjoyed. It only ever came out on cassette, not vinyl. Is the new Maroon 5 record called Geordie. I've really enjoyed this. Played this numerous times. And then this was one that I actually picked up just because I really like the cover art. So this is a girl named Liz Cooper. And this record is so the album itself is called Hot Sass, and it's just kind of singer-songwriter rock type of stuff, and it's really, really good. And this copy's autographed by her, which I thought was kind of cool. So
Very cool.
yeah, I've really enjoyed
What's
that
her
one.
genre? I haven't heard that, but what is her genre?
I would call it sort of like singer-songwriter rock, but electric, not acoustic. So like she has a band, but she plays guitar and sings, and it's not like hard rock or anything, but it's kind of more of an indie type sound. So
Okay, cool.
yeah. And then this one has been in pretty solid rotation ever since I got it. The new Garbage album, No Gods, No Masters. I have really been digging on this. Love it.
Is that your record store day title? Record store day drops?
Yeah, it's the Record Store Day version. Yep. So
Yeah. And it was released later. It was a traditional colored vinyl.
yeah, it was with different cover too. The Record Store Day version had a unique cover art too. This one, I think the marketing on this. Ooh, Adam, can you turn your volume or your audio? Adam, I'm going to need you to turn your audio down. I'm getting an echo. I can't hear you either. Can't hear you, Adam. But all I can hear is myself through your. Just heard your phone ding. Yeah, I'm gonna have to. I think, Chris. Yeah, this is gonna be tough with the with the echo coming through Adam's device. Oh, I think you just. Okay, you solved. All right, you solved the echo problem, Adam, but we still can't hear your audio. Okay, it looks like Adam dropped. All right. Well, then I'm going to go ahead and keep going. Hopefully Adam will rejoin here shortly. But another 2021 release that really surprised me. How much I enjoyed it. Oh, it looks like Adam's back, and I can hear my echo again. All I can hear is myself through your device. Can't hear you. Yeah, Adam, Chris said back to your car. You were phone when you were in your car. All right. Okay, so another one that really Calvin. Yeah, it sounds like the beginning of the $6 man. She's breaking up. So anyway, another one from 2021 that really surprised me was John Mayer's Sob Rock. This sounds like the greatest album to come out in 1985 that wasn't recorded in 1985, but I've enjoyed the heck out of this since it came out. Then after that, we got the Killers put out a great album in 2020. And then because they couldn't tour due to the pandemic, they decided to just do another record. And it came out fantastic. So this one's called Pressure Machine. And, for anyone who's followed the Killers past the early 2000s during their commercial peak, the Killers have just continued to put out records that were great. And this one's no exception. This one's quite a bit darker and somber than we're used to from them, but I really have loved it. Let's see. Chris says, I hear a great way to save a live stream is to give away records. Adam Adam may have you guys covered on that. Who knows? Let's see. Hi, TARDIS. Good morning. Let's see. I went to a John Mayer concert and there were nothing but dirty hippies there. Yeah, ever since he started playing with Dead and Company, it's definitely changed the element of folks that show up at his concerts. I don't think the old element has gone away, but it has definitely added a new element of folks that that show up to his concert as well. Okay, Adam says he's watching on YouTube. Yeah, Adam, I don't know what that was all about, but as soon as you walked into the shop, all of a sudden we couldn't hear you. We could tell you were talking, but we couldn't hear you. And all I could hear was myself echoing through your device. So it was making things a little bit difficult. Anyway, so another 2021 release that I really enjoyed on the pop side is the new album from Halsey. I can never get the name of this straight because it's long. It's called If I Can't Have Love, I Want Power. And this is just more pop excellence. You know, I've always been a sucker for great pop songwriting, and this one delivers in spades. So been listening to this one a lot. And then ever since probably 2019, Iron Maiden had been teasing new music. And in 2021, we finally got it. Every time is the right time for new Maiden music. So this is the new Iron Maiden album called Senjutsu. And this is 3 LPs. So it's fairly long. I think it's about 85 minutes or so. This album was great to hear because on the last record, which came out in 2015, Bruce Dickinson had not undergone treatment for his throat cancer yet. And when you listen to him on that record called The Book of Souls, you can tell something isn't right with him, right, with his voice. And but, you know, in that time, he underwent treatment for throat cancer. He's in remission and took some lessons to help get his voice back. And Bruce is only at about 80% of normal, but 80% of Bruce is still better than 100% of a lot of singers. And on Senjutsu, Bruce sounds as good as he has in years. So this was definitely a step up from the last record. Very, very happy with it. This one kind of came out of left field to become one of my favorites of 2021. For anyone who might know the pop punk band Paramore, who had a bunch of hits in the late 2000s and early 2010s. Their lead singer, Hayley Williams, put out a solo album in 2021. It's called Flowers for Vases. And this is nothing like the pop punk of Paramore. This is very acoustic, very melancholy, very kind of somber, and it's just amazing. Hayley's voice on this is outstanding. I could never get tired of listening to this. So good. One of my favorite rock albums of 2021 is the new one from the War on Drugs called I Don't Live Here Anymore. This one, if you like any of the War on Drugs previous records, you'll probably like this one too. There's plenty to love. You know, if you like that sound, that kind of mix between Tom Petty and Dire Straits with a little bit of Bob Dylan thrown in, yeah, this album's got you covered. So good stuff. And then last but not least from the 2021 stack, these guys, this band's called The Record Company. The album's called Play Loud. And I would liken The Record Company to the Black Keys, kind of hard bluesy rock, but, you know, up-tempo, fun, excellent stuff. If you liked the Black Keys, check these guys out. They're fantastic. All right, let's see what's going on in the comments here. So if Adam's device was connected to his car Bluetooth and he went into the shop, the device may still be seeking the car connection. Just turning off the phone and restarting it. Okay. TARDIS said, okay, just an idea. It happens like that with my phone and cars. The war on drugs, drugs won. That's true. That is true. That's that's a whole other conversation, TARDIS. All right. And then last but not least, I was going to go through some fun stuff here. You know, at the beginning of the stream, I had mentioned that Genesis was my favorite band of all time. And interestingly, I realized that in all the streams I've done with Adam, I haven't really talked about Genesis very much. I am a fan of all eras of Genesis, whether it's Peter Gabriel, Phil Collins, or beyond. They have always just been one of my favorite bands because their music just resonates with me. It always has. I went through a big prog rock phase when I was in my 20s, and I won't say I outgrew it, but I kind of moved on past it. But there are certain prog albums that will always be musical comfort food to me, and most of Genesis prog albums are in that conversation as well. But you know, they got started back in 1969. They put out an album called From Genesis to Revelation. They got hooked up with this guy Jonathan King, who had a huge pop hit in the 60s called Everyone's Gone to the Moon. And somehow he became a producer, and he ended up signing Genesis to Decca Records and put out this very first record. This is going to be really tough to see because the cover's really glossy. It came out in the US or in the UK originally, and it didn't come out in the US until 1974 after Genesis had some popularity. But what was funny is Jonathan King said, yeah, you know, we were being pretentious and we decided we were going to put it in this all black sleeve, and we weren't going to put any name on it or anything. We were just going to call it From Genesis to Revelation. People would discover it and it would become extremely important. Well, he said it completely backfired on him, because when this record showed up at record shops, they said, From Genesis to Revelation must be religious music. So they threw it in the bins with all the other religious music. So, I mean, this didn't do a thing commercially. This also doesn't sound like anything else in the Genesis catalog. It's very poppy, lots of string arrangements to link the songs together, things like that. The band generally doesn't have much to say on this record. It's just one of those things. It's their first album, but it's just kind of faded off into obscurity. This one is a stereo copy. These old Decca pressings used to have a die-cut circle in the back with an inner sleeve that matched, and so you could look in the die-cut hole and see what color it was. So if it was blue, it was stereo, and if it was red, it was mono. There are mono copies of this that exist. They are extremely expensive on the used market. I will likely never own one, and that's totally fine for how little that I listen to this album. But that's where they began. And then after that happened, they got dropped from Decca, and Jonathan King got them hooked up with another guy, the head of a label called Charisma Records, and the guy's name was Tony Stratton Smith, and he ended up signing them. And then Genesis started to become Genesis, right? They started to do their progressive rock, their style of progressive rock. And this album, Trespass, was their second record. This was the first one to be released in the US. And interestingly, in the US, this got picked up by ABC Records, who decided to release it on Impulse. Why on earth they would release Genesis on a jazz label like Impulse, your guess is as good as mine, especially because ABC had other sub-labels that would have been much more appropriate. But That's what it is. They released it on impulse, and this is an original copy from 1970. Phil Collins is not on this record. This was before he joined the band. So who was it? John? Yeah, this was John Mayhew on drums, and this had Anthony Phillips on guitar. So this is before Steve Hackett joined the band for the rest of the 70s. Trespass is probably, I wouldn't say it's my favorite of their prog records, but it's up there. Then after Trespass, guitarist Anthony Phillips and drummer John Mayhew decided to leave the band, and they hired this guy Steve Hackett to come and play guitar, and this guy you may have heard of, Phil Collins, to play drums. And they put this record out. It's called Nursery Crime. This is probably my favorite of their prog albums. There is not a bad moment on this. And, Peter Gabriel sings vocals on all but one song. Phil Collins sings on one of the very short tracks on here. So he made his vocal debut for Genesis on this record, even though he was just the drummer. And Calvin says the first Genesis album sounded like old Bee Gees. That is a very good analogy. Yeah, I would actually agree with that, Calvin. Yeah, it does. It sounds like that first Bee Gees record. And so, hey, Adam. Adam, you got audio? Oh, okay. Guess not. All right. So after that, many people who are fans of 70s Genesis will tell you that this is their favorite Genesis album. I like it. I like it well enough. Foxtrot. This has some that have become stone cold Genesis classics in their discography. Songs like Watcher of the Skies and Get 'Em Out by Friday, and big 22-minute epic called Supper's Ready. Supper's Ready, I think, is one of the greatest pieces of music in Genesis catalog. If you've never heard any of the Peter Gabriel era Genesis records, Foxtrot is definitely one of the ones to start with. But I would actually recommend this one to start. If you've never heard Peter Gabriel Genesis, this is the first one you're going to want to listen to. This is Selling England by the Pound. This was the first album after they got signed to Atlantic Records, which is where they're still signed to this day. And so this one has Dancing with the Moonlit Night, I Know What I Like in Your Wardrobe, Firth of Fifth. Phil Collins also gets a vocal on here on a song, More Fool Me. And then side 2 has things that are usually live favorites, like the instrumental breaks to the Battle of Epping Forest and the Cinema Show. So this is one of Genesis' crowning achievements. Excellent record, top to bottom. And then after that, they released a double album, a concept album, and this one's called The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. And there are people that know quite a few of the songs on here, whether it's the title track or Fly on the Windshield or the Carpet Crawlers. They also do, still to this day, they perform the instrumental break to the Colony of Slipper Men. There are a lot of people that really love The Lamb. I actually don't really like this record a whole lot. I would say I have a love-hate relationship with it. I think I have the same problem with this record as I do with the White Album, and with the Beatles' White Album, and also with Pink Floyd's The Wall, right? And my problem is somewhere in here, there is a fantastic single LP, but I think as a double LP, there's just too much. There's just too much stuff that doesn't go anywhere, that doesn't, lead the listener anywhere. And sometimes it just comes across as noodling. But the great moments on that album are really great. But there are plenty of times where I'm just like, is this going somewhere? So I'm not the biggest fan of The Lamb. But that was the end of Peter Gabriel's tenure with Genesis. He left after that. And Genesis was sort of faced with a bit of a conundrum because they needed to find a new singer. And as we all know, Phil Collins ended up getting that job. But it's funny. I always love hearing Phil tell this story, because he says that they hired another guy to come in and sing. They had him hired. They brought him in the studio. And he said, while they were trying to audition singers, they were working on this album, Trick of the Tail. And this ended up being the first one with Phil on vocals. But while they were auditioning singers, they were working on this. Well, they needed somebody to do the melody and sing, the lyrical parts so that they could figure things out. So Phil Collins was doing that while they were auditioning singers. So they go and they found a singer. They brought him into the studio. And apparently after a day, he got cold feet and he walked out. And Phil said, at that point, I'd basically done the album, because we had rough demos with my vocals on them. So he said, I'd basically done the album at that point. So basically, Phil said, I got the job because we couldn't find anyone else to do it. And of course, that ended up, there's always a joke with Genesis. So now they're a 4-piece starting on this band, or on this record. And there's always been a joke about Genesis that their popularity was inversely proportional to the number of members in the band. And so A Trick of the Tail has a lot of stuff that has become live favorites. Ripples and Dance on a Volcano, Squonk, Robbery, Assault and Battery, the instrumental piece Los Endos. This record is so good. However, this one I think is better. As a matter of fact, if you were going to hold my feet to the fire and make me pick an absolute favorite Genesis album across all years, all decades, all eras, this is the one, Wind and Wuthering. This one probably didn't have as much commercial success as A Trick of the Tail, but it had their first sort of love song on it, I guess you could call it, that obviously would propel them to stardom in the 80s. But Afterglow is the name of that song. But there is so much great prog on here. 11th Earl Lamar, One for the Vine, God, All at a Mouse's Night, Blood on the Rooftops. This album is absolutely outstanding. If you've never heard it, you should check it out. It's really good. Let's see, anything to catch up on the comments? Okay, I guess Adam's saying that Adam, is it the Lamb or Selling England that is your favorite Genesis record? I think you said it was the Lamb. After that, there was Genesis decided to release a studio EP of all things, and it interestingly was never released in the U.S. and it was released in a bunch of countries. So I've got a Canadian version here on blue vinyl. And it was released, I think, only in Canada on colored vinyl, but it's called Spot the Pigeon. And it's got 2 songs that I kind of consider to be a little bit of throwaway: Match of the Day, which is a song about soccer, and Pigeons, which is basically a song about cleaning pigeon crap off of roofs. Literally, the first line of the song Pigeons is, "Who put 50 tons of shit on the Foreign Office roof?" However, the third song is amazing. It's called Inside and Out, and it is one of the shining gems of Genesis progressive rock era. Excellent song. So, yeah, Spot the Pigeon EP is totally worth having just for that one song alone. And then after that, Steve Hackett decided to leave the band, leaving Genesis as a 3-piece. And so in the studio, bassist and guitarist Mike Rutherford just kind of took over lead guitar and bass in the studio. And you still had Tony Banks on keyboards and Phil Collins on drums and vocals. And this was their first album as a 3-piece in 1978. And then there were 3. Fitting title, considering the state of the band at that time. This was the album that had their first big hit in the U.S. It's called Follow You, Follow Me. But generally speaking, this is still a very proggy type album. There are some killer tracks on here: Down and Out, Undertow. Oh, God, Burning Rope. Man, if you ever needed proof about what an amazing drummer Phil Collins is, go listen to Burning Rope. Let's see. Many Too Many is great. Scenes from a Night's Dream. Say It's All Right Joke. So many great songs on this record. Then after this, we get into the 80s. And in 1980, Genesis put out what has turned out to be one of their best overall albums in their entire catalog, Duke. Duke was sort of the last one that had a lot of prog elements to it. There's a whole suite of songs here made up of Behind the Lines, Duchess, Guide Vocal, Turn It On Again, Duke's Travels, and Duke's End. That's all together called the Duke Suite. And unfortunately, the only time they always play pieces of the Duke Suite live, but the last time that they ever played the entire Duke Suite start to finish live was on the tour for this record in 1980 and 1981. But Duke is one of my top Genesis records. It's amazing. After this is where they started to move in a more commercial direction, which sort of coincided with Phil Collins becoming a solo superstar in his own right. In 1981, he put out his first solo album, Face Value, which of course has In the Air Tonight. And Inside Out, your favorite Phil song, Adam? Yeah, that's actually different than the one I'm talking about. But yeah, the Genesis song I was talking about was called Inside and Out. But found a Black Sabbath Paranoid Green Label that I only played once. Is it worth anything? I mean, depending on a few factors, it could be Barbara. But either way, I mean, if it's in great condition and it plays well, you'll you could probably get a little coin for it. So anyway, Phil Collins puts out his first studio record, and that of course has In the Air Tonight, and so that sort of wore off on Genesis as well. It's funny about In the Air Tonight because 40 years after that song came out, and the members of Genesis still tell different stories about that. Phil Collins swears that he brought In the Air Tonight to the guys in Genesis, and they weren't interested in recording it. They didn't want it. They didn't like the song. The guys in the other two members of Genesis tell the complete opposite story and say that Phil never brought them that song because they would have recorded it in a heartbeat if they had ever heard it. So who knows what the real story is there? But anyway, in 1981, Genesis put out an album called Abba Cab, and Abba Cab, the name of this record is funny because they all said that when they were writing the song Abba Cab, they had three what they call bits of songs. They had bit A, bit B, and bit C. And at one point, while they were trying to get the song together, the bits were arranged A, B, A, C, A, B, which is why the song's called Abba Cab. The final version is not laid out that way. It's something like A, B, B, C, A, B, B, C, or something like that. But anyway, there's still a little bit of prog element on this, but it's mostly pop. And there are some killer songs on here, right? Between Abba Cab, that's probably the best known song on this record, that and Man on the Corner. But then, you've also got stuff like Me and Sarah Jane, No Reply at All, got some radio play back in the day. And then Dodo and Lurker are the big proggy type songs on here. I like Abba Cab as an album. I don't love it, but I like it. It's good. And then I should grab this real quick because it does have studio stuff on it. I've been skipping over the live albums because I don't really feel like they're as relevant, but this one I think is worth mentioning. So 1982, Genesis put out this record called Three Sides Live. And interestingly, in the United States and Canada is the only place where the title is correct, where it's actually only three sides that are live. There's a fourth side of studio tracks here that had come out on EPs in other countries. The studio tracks are called Paper Late, you might recall, Me and Virgil, Evidence of Autumn, and Open Door. Of those songs, I think Paper Late, You Might Recall, and Evidence of Autumn are probably my my favorites. But this is also a great live album. The first 3 sides are all live, and it's got a lot of great material from the period on it. So definitely check this out if you're into live albums. This is really good. So and in the other countries that didn't have the studio tracks on side 4, it was just an additional 4th side of live tracks, but it was older stuff. So that version of the album is worth hearing too. 1983, the self-titled Genesis album. I love this. This is a great pop record. Mama is one of my all-time favorite Genesis songs. Of course, this one has That's All. Home by the Sea and Second Home by the Sea is a Genesis epic. Love that piece. This also has Illegal Alien and Taking It All Too Hard, Just a Job to Do, Silver Rainbow, and It's Gonna Get Better. So I love this record, but this is where Genesis just went full on pop, right? Straight on pop. And they did a great job with it. They really did. All right, and then let's see. Next was probably their biggest selling album, and the one that made them absolute superstars, from 1986, Invisible Touch. So I mean, songs from this record are still played on the radio to this day, right? Invisible Touch, Land of Confusion, Into Deep, Throwing It All Away. But what's interesting is I actually like this more for the longer songs and the darker songs like Tonight, 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 and Domino and The Brazilian. The Brazilian is one of my favorite Genesis instrumentals of all time. That song is incredible. So, you know, not much I can really say about Invisible Touch that hasn't been said 100 times in the past. And then this one, a lot of people don't like. I absolutely adore this album, from 1991. Genesis We Can't Dance record. This was probably the most prog-laced album they had done since Duke in 1980. So, you know, the songs on this, so, you know, you've got fun songs like I Can't Dance, which was a big hit, and Hold On My Heart, which was the big love song on here. But man, there were some really dark and really serious songs on here. Songs like No Son of Mine, which deals with domestic child abuse. Jesus, He Knows Me, which is making fun of like televangelists and TV preachers. Driving the Last Spike, which was about building the English railroads in the 1800s. Dreaming While You Sleep, which is a song about, from a first-person perspective of a hit and run. I mean, there are some real dark, somber stuff on this record, and I just adore it. It's great. And then the last one here. I apologize. I need to take a quick break and go deal with something. I will be right back.
Can you hear me, Shawn?
I can hear you, Adam. Yes.
Oh, hallelujah. There's just something about. Okay, good. Okay, cool.
I'll be right back.
Yeah, absolutely. I had to grab some stuff to take to Raleigh, record talk, and so who knows, who understands this internet and stuff like that. Calvin was asking, do you have all 4 covers of Abba Cab?
I do. The other 3 are off in a storage bin somewhere because I only need 1 copy on my shelf to play. But yes, I do have all 4 covers. Yeah. And I forgot to mention that, with Abba Cab, that it was released. It was the same cover art, but it was in 4 different color schemes. It was covers A, B, C, and D. The cover I showed, I believe, was cover A, because that's my favorite. Yeah, it's cover A. And so anyway, after We Can't Dance came out in 1991, Phil Collins decided that he wanted to go and do his own thing, and that he wasn't really interested in doing Genesis. They decided they wanted to try and regroup in the mid-90s, and Phil Collins said, well, if you're going to do it, you're probably going to do it without me, because I don't have time. I've got other things going on. So they went out and they hired a new singer. They went out and hired this guy, Ray Wilson, who was the lead singer of a band called Stiltskin. And they had some hits in Europe. Didn't really have much success in the United States, but Stiltskin had a couple of hits in Europe. And his voice was very dark, very Peter Gabriel-esque. And so in 1997, they released what remains their very last studio album. They never put out another one after this, but it's called Calling All Stations. And I am probably the biggest shill for this album you will ever meet. I love this record. Like, this is easily in my top 5, top 6 Genesis records. It's poppy, but there's also a lot of prog element to it. And man, Ray Wilson's voice is just awesome. The title track to this is great. Congo is good. Alien Afternoon, Not About Us, The Dividing Line, Uncertain Weather, There Must Be Some Other Way, One Man's Fool. God, there are so many great songs on this record. And thankfully, even though fans and critics, crapped on it when it came out, time has been kind to it. And a lot of people have come around to this record over the last 20 years. And a lot more people like it now than did back then. So, and that's my trip through the Genesis discography. And Adam, I think that's all I brought for today. Let's see. If you're trying to talk, Adam, we don't have any audio from you, but. Oh. Okay, now I think we can hear you.
What happened?
Oh, there you go. Okay, yeah, we got you now. I got your audio.
Did you read what Chris said?
Let's see. I have one of the 7 million versions of Police Synchronicity. Yeah, right. And Chris, that's one of those records for me too, where I bought one to play and I've got it on my shelf. I don't feel the need to own all the umpteen thousand covers of that. Yeah, but that was another one.
But it's cool to get the one that has 3, 4. It's cool to get the ones that have breast on the covers.
Yeah. I'm not sure if mine does or not. I'll have to go back and look.
There you go. Well, did you speak about any of those solo records other than Phil? Did you speak about Rutherford's solo record? And
no, I didn't, and I tried to stay away from the solo career. I just thought that story about In the Air Tonight was funny. But honestly, so where I fall on the solo careers, right? I think that the only member of Genesis, or the only members of Genesis that had a solo career that was truly fruitful and amazing was pretty much Peter Gabriel's entire solo career. And Phil Collins probably through the mid-90s. But, beyond that, right, you got Mike and the Mechanics. They had some hits in the 80s. That was Mike Rutherford's side project. Mike and the Mechanics was decent. I wouldn't hold them in the same regard that I hold the early Phil Collins stuff and pretty much anything Peter Gabriel's ever released. But Mike and the Mechanics was good. And then Steve Hackett has basically built his entire solo career around reliving his years in Genesis. And I'm good. And Tony Banks, his solo career has been crazy. He's done soundtracks. He put together a band called Bank Statement that put out one record in the late 80s. That record's okay. I wouldn't classify it as an amazing album or anything. But I will say this about Tony Banks' solo career. In 1995, he got together with Jack Hughes, who was the lead vocalist for Wang Chung. And Tony Banks and Jack Hughes put out an album under a group name called Strictly Inc., INC, like Strictly Incorporated. And that album is absolutely amazing. If you ever find a used CD copy of that or something somewhere, pick it up because it's great. It is absolutely awesome. Jack Hughes, his voice sounded fantastic. And Tony Banks, the instrumentation and the way that he arranged those songs They caught lightning in a bottle on that record. They really did. It's awesome.
Well, I'm glad that Mike was able to have some success with some hits, so that was good for him.
Yeah, certainly, especially because his couple of solo records, he put out two solo records in the 80s, earlier in the 80s, before Mike and the Mechanics. One was called Acting Very Strange, and the other one was called Small Creeps Day. And both of those records, I think, were mediocre at best. Okay, yeah, Don likes Paul Carrack. Sure, Paul Carrack was a very integral part of Mike and the Mechanics. Sadly, too, Mike and the Mechanics also had a singer, a guy named Paul Young that was in the band, and he died from a heart attack in 2000, and that was a big loss for the band. And interestingly, I found it so funny that Mike and the Mechanics, when they were having all their hits in the 80s, they had a guy named Paul Young in the band, and at the same time, there was a solo singer named Paul Young, totally different guy, that was off having
different cat
pop hits of his own, what was it, Every Time You Go Away, and all that, and it was a completely different guy than the guy in Mike and the Mechanics. They just had the same name. Yeah, Stuart Copeland played on Acting Very Strange. Yeah, Calvin, I don't know. I may have to go back and give that album a listen. And admittedly, I probably haven't listened to it in 15 years. But every time I've put it on, I've just kind of been like, eh. I mean, yeah, it's all right. But yeah, maybe I should listen to it with fresh ears and see if it does anything for me.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
You on your way back to Raleigh, Adam?
I am. So what do you think about, so I was going to ask you a question and get your thoughts. So Phil Collins had a wonderful career in the 80s of wonderful songs. He did the Live Aid. He did this. He did that. He was involved in this and that. Do you think that when this was happening, that was a big push for Genesis sales of records?
So, anytime that Mike Rutherford and Tony Banks have been asked about that, because the timing is a little more than coincidental, right? It's like they go and Phil Collins has his huge breakout solo 1981 with Face Value, and then bam, Genesis puts out Abba Cab the same year, and Genesis goes into pop and follows him with a solo career. But when you ask Mike Rutherford and Tony Banks about that, they have both said, until they're blue in the face, that there was never any record company pressure for that it was just something that they wanted to do because prog was falling out of favor. People weren't listening to it as much, and they felt like all of the avenues that they had in the prog world had been traveled, had been mined, and they wanted to do something else, right? And to be fair, they had love songs going all the way back to the Peter Gabriel era, right? More Fool Me, which Phil sings on Selling England by the Pound. That is very much a love song. And then you've got Afterglow on Wind and Wuthering from 1976, right? And Follow You, Follow Me from 1978. And then you've got Misunderstanding on Duke in 1980, right? So, I mean, they were moving that direction already, but I refuse to believe that Phil's solo career didn't play a part in it. But according to Mike and Tony, they've always said that it was something that they wanted to do because they just wanted to do something different. And I get it. I mean, you have to do what satisfies you as an artist.
Do you think because of Phil's career in the 80s, it introduced a lot of people to Genesis, and you think any of those people reached back into the old catalog?
Oh, absolutely. I did. I mean, I got into Genesis because I used to spin the crap out of my dad's copy of Phil Collins' No Jacket Required. And one day my dad was like, if you like this, you ought to go and check out the band he was in. I said, he was in a band? And my dad's like, yeah, he was in Genesis. And I said, all right, well, you got any Genesis records? And Dad said, I don't think so. But he said, I think I've got Abba Cab on tape. And sure enough, I remember him finding his copy of Abba Cab on tape. And I played Abba Cab, and I was like, wow. And yeah, that's what kind of sent me back through the Genesis catalog. And then, I remember, just finding Genesis records, CDs and stuff at shops. And one day I picked one up and I was like, Peter Gabriel was in Genesis? What? And that was a whole rabbit hole in and of itself. So yeah, no, I mean, I certainly did. And I can't be the only one. I think we lost your audio again, Adam.
I'm here.
Okay, there you are. Gotcha. So
I heard Sledgehammer before. I heard Sledgehammer before I knew Peter Gabriel was in Genesis at one time, and I heard Sledgehammer before I heard early Peter Gabriel solo records. Yeah. Let's see.
Peter Gabriel solo stuff. So good.
So Phil also reached out and did some duets.
Yep. With Philip Bailey.
Yep.
Easy
and then and then there was a girl that was from a movie, I think. Anyway, but he did some of that stuff too, which was cool. Yeah. I'm just so glad there was never a band called Phil Collins and Genesis.
Oh God, no. So anyway, Adam, I need to go ahead and wrap it up here. I got to go and take care of some things here in the house. So thanks for having me again. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks to everybody for hanging out with us today. I appreciate it a bunch. I'm on the way back to Raleigh. Shawn's on his way to take care of some cool things around his life. And so there we go. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day. See you next time.